debunk, and it makes no sense.
Well, it's funny because I used to feed my little dog King, who was a barn dog.
I had a dog named King.
Yes, he was adorable. He used to get the beef and the chicken and whatever meat scraps we had. So it was no big deal.
Exactly.
And he ate dog food.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking the 1960s
Exactly. But he probably lived to 15, 16, 17 years old.
He did.
And, back and giving them table scraps back in the 50s and the 60s was okay because our table scraps it wasn't Stouffer's lasagna or like leftover, KFC or
it was
Doritos.
Clean food.
It was clean food.
Absolutely.
There weren't preservatives in it. And that was okay. And that's, again, yes, you don't want to give them have them live off of your leftover lunchbox food. But if you are cooking, if you're cooking a lean meat, if you're steaming vegetables or rice or anything like that, by all means, put some aside and give that to your dog before you put salt and pepper and Tabasco or barbecue sauce or any of that stuff on it.
My dogs love rice.
It's great for them.
And whenever they get sick to their stomach, I give them rice.
Exactly.
Just start it out.
And that's what this recipe was from Healing Rudy Green,
rice.
Ground beef, brown rice, peas, and carrots. It's not rocket science. It's just food. And it's great for them.
Just before we end the hour, and for Harry's benefit, I want you to retell the story of Rudy and how Rudy Greens came to be, because I think it's fascinating.
Okay. Rudy Green was my very first foster failure. He was a purebred chocolate lab that showed up at my house in the midst of me having found homes for hundreds of mangy mutts, and decided to stay with me. At age 14, he became deathly ill from switching arthritis medication, and my vet said, go home and cook for him. He can't eat dog food. And after 10 days of cooking for Rudy Green, better than he'd been in 5 years.
Isn't that amazing?
Boom. And I carried him home from the vet. So I started doing research on pet food, and what I found, it's not just there are things that aren't so great to start with in it, but anything of any value is destroyed in the process of making kibble and canned food. So the nutrients are put back in artificially. And a sick dog, an old dog, any compromised immune system, even sometimes a perfectly healthy animal, doesn't always absorb those artificial nutrients. They are not bioavailable. Mm-hmm. So this is a way I came up with a product that is just gently cooked, real food that you can use to help nurse a sick old dog back to health, but for every day to mix in and keep your dog healthy and give them back the joy and the variety of real food. And, it's crazy to think you should eat the same thing every day. Even if we ate nothing but tofu, oatmeal, broccoli for every meal every day, we'd be missing something. So you do need variety.
Okay, Carla,
yes.
How far is this going to go with my 3 dogs? It says this contains 4 pouches.
Show you. All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right, this is a 24-ounce box. And these retail, mind you, at $9.99. Okay, this is a 24-ounce box with 4 6-ounce. You are. These.
Ovena.
Okay, Ovena, yes.
If she can break them apart.
Yes, I can do this.
Okay.
These 6-ounce pouches, I see what size dogs you are.
Yes.
Now, obviously, different size portions for different dogs.
Right.
A third of this pouch for a 40-pound dog as a mix-in is plenty.
Wow.
So take this home and thaw it out and give that big guy half.
Okay.
Okay? Give that teeny little guy a little bit.
A little corner.
And give the other one the rest.
Okay.
Okay. And a ball while you're at it. Give him a ball because he needs a ball.
Wyatt needs a ball.
He needs a ball. He needs a ball right now.
Oof, awesome.
Yes. Okay. So this is a mix-in. Now you got 3 dogs. 1 pouch and that's a generous helping. That's a generous serving. So that's going to last you. A box is going to last you 4 days.
Oh, man.
And that's not $2.50 is not too much to spend to give them the joy and the health. And you don't cook, so and now if somebody's cooking it, but you can eat
Harry,
this.
You can actually eat this food.
You can.
Do you
want to
try it?
It really is.
Oh, Harry, listen. This has got ground beef, brown rice, carrots, peas, canola oil, garlic powder, and water, and nothing else.
That's it. And it's made in a USDA, FDA monitored human food facility.
Human grade ingredients.
Yes.
I'm actually going to cook one of these.
And you're going to put salt on it and maybe some Worcestershire, some soy sauce. It's delicious.
I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat it and I'm going to report back.
Yes.
I'm going to tell Carla what I think about it. I think it could be kind of fun.
Thank you.
When we talk about the types of food that we serve to our dogs now, as opposed to when it was first, created in the 1950s, how different is it? I mean, obviously we have a lot more added to it, but how different is it and how is it affecting our dogs' lives? I'm curious.
All right, let's put it this way. dogs, instead of our longevity, we are increasing our lifespans. Dogs have been getting shorter and shorter and shorter over the last 3 decades. Tremendously so. Things like cancers and all kinds of allergies and illnesses, things that didn't exist. Now, of course, now we can actually test for them, so you got to take that into consideration too. But it is from the food. It's not just from the environment, because they're in the same environment we are.
Right.
So why would we think that? And I will leave you with one really gross thought that
I'd love to be left with a really gross thought.
Well, and I want people to realize that it's so important to read your label. If ingredients, there should be meat, there should be whole grains, there should be things you can pronounce and recognize in your pet's food. If you see things like meat byproduct, not if it doesn't say a chicken byproduct, which isn't great, or a pork byproduct, if it doesn't tell you the source of the meat, know that by law that's allowed to not only be diseased animals that are killed other than slaughter, that's allowed to be dead roadkill, it's allowed to be dead zoo animals, and it is allowed to contain 5% only of rendered, euthanized shelter animals.
Oh, God.
There you go.
That's
Look that one up.
terrible.
That's the law. It's only 5% though, so it's okay to have phenobarbital if it's just a little bit.
And you actually got you got your dog off of the euthanasia table.
Teddy came. Yeah, Teddy was on the table at Metro Animal Services the last time I volunteered there. I wailed on the door, I should say, and said, I'll take him.
Well,
Well,
thank God.
Yeah.
And
he's happy.
They work so hard
do.
to get to 100% survival rate, and it's a
hard.
very difficult thing to do. So spaying and neutering is a huge thing.
Absolutely, and that's where this 5% of every sale, not of profits, of this every sale of this product, 5% of it goes to help shelters and rescue organizations in every market that we're in, and primarily to spay and neuter.
Oh, that's just absolutely amazing. Carla Haas, thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you for
time to be
having
with
me.
us.
I love talking about dogs.
I know, and I appreciate I told her she has the encyclopedic knowledge of dog food that you do of baseball, Harry, which is pretty awesome. So thank you for bringing your encyclopedias with you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
and
it.
we will have to have a conversation very
I want to hear
soon.
about this. Yeah, I want to see some pictures.
I want to show you about what happens with the dogs and what
Good.
happens with me. And, I'm sure that the dogs will survive my preparation of this food.
You don't have to do much.
Because even preparation is a challenge for me. So, I may be calling you hysterical saying, Carla, I over microwaved and I don't know what to do.
Let's just go the warm water route.
It is going to be a whole lot of fun. Let's close this hour of Waggin Wednesday with our buddy Nick Pay. We'll be back with Harry Rothgerber, a true expert in baseball, and we'll have the highlights of Louisville baseball plus more coming up on Take It From Tara.
I wake up 9:30. The sun is shining and I'm feeling fine. I get up, go downstairs and out the back door in the morning air. Walk around my backyard, smell the flowers, shout at passing cars. I lay down right in the grass, happy not to let this moment pass. Whatever the weather, it's gonna be the best day ever. Whatever the weather, it's gonna be the best day ever. Hey, let's go for a walk. Nothing fancy, just around the block. When we get back, we'll go inside, but maybe later we can take a ride. Whatever the weather, it's gonna couch and watch TV. And when it's time to go to bed, I'll close my eyes and wait to start again. Whatever the weather, it's gonna be the best day ever. Whatever the weather, it's gonna be the best day ever. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever the weather, it's gonna be the best day, the best day ever. Whatever the weather, it's gonna be the best, it's gonna be the best day ever. Whatever the weather, it's gonna be the best, gonna be.
You're listening to WCHQ LP, Louisville, Kentucky, 100.9 FM, Crescent Hill Radio. All local music all the time.
This is Patty Margay. Please join me and Phyllis Fitzgerald for the Local Life Conversations Around the Kitchen Table. We'll talk about how to bring more of local food into our Louisville area community, how to cook it in creative and healthy ways, and how to promote sustainability in the way we live. Living lightly on the earth because it's the only one we've got. Please join us on Saturday at 1 p.m. here on WCHQ.
Wow. Nick Pay's going to open the next hour with us, too. This is Swept Away from Life Lovin' Us in 2011, right here on Crescent Hill Radio, WCHQ 100.9 FM on Take It From Tara.
Rain, rain, it's not surprising. And day by day, the river is rising. Soon, soon, it covers your feet. And no, you don't retreat. Swept away, falling further in love. Every day, drifting deeper in love. Swept away in love. Rush, rush, the current gets stronger. Hush, hush, stay a little bit longer. Maybe you're caught in a daydream, but no, no, you find yourself downstream. Swept away, falling farther in love. Every day, drifting deeper in love. Swept away, rushing river, take my heart, show it depths it's never known. Sunshine glints on the river. Round and round you everything glimmers. Let go as you drift along. Float on just like the song. Swept away, falling farther in love. Every day, drifting deeper in love.
Hey, Facebook Live friends, are you aware of the fact that we are actually broadcasting live right now? And Harry Rothgerber is my guest. We are so glad to have him with us today. Harry, thanks for being with us, buddy.
My pleasure, Tara.
Tara, that's okay. Whatever it is that you want to call me today, there you are. I'm going to show you how cute you look. Look at that monitor. Look at you with all of your baseball.
Who is that old guy?
Who is that old guy? I want you to put your face right up next to that. And I think that people on Facebook are going to be able to hear you. And the reason I think that is because I've got the phone up real close so that they will be able to hear the ambient sound. So anybody who's listening to me, please send me a text real quick or just post on the live that you can hear us. That's going to be really helpful. Larry Estep is listening right now, so he's a guy who knows a lot about media. He can probably let me know. Okay, first, real quick, before we get into this, I want to mention that we have a great deal of fun living here in Crescent Hill. There are so many things to do, and one of the great things is the Crescent Hill Evening of Fun that occurs when we have the Spirit of Crescent Hill Awards and the Mayor's Night Out, which is really cool. And that's actually going to happen tomorrow night. And I'm looking forward to introducing you to the concept of living here by inviting you to Field Elementary, which is right up close to Sacred Heart Lane. It's actually on Sacred Heart Lane. It starts at 7 o'clock. And for whatever reason, there you are. I couldn't figure out where you were, Harry. 7 o'clock tomorrow night, the Spirit of Crescent Hill Awards and Dessert with Our Mayor. That is going to be a bunch of fun. So get up there if you want to ask questions of Mayor Fisher and find out more about what goes on a regular basis right here in Crescent Hill. So my guest today on Take It From Tara, which is what we call all my shows that aren't Waggin Wednesday, because the idea is that you can take it from Tara that it's a good thing. So you can take it from Tara that Harry Rothgerber knows a whole lot about baseball. Tell me about your outfit today, because you got some pretty cool stuff on there, Harry.
Well, I'm wearing a reproduction of a 1916 Louisville Colonels cap. 1916 is an important year for the Colonels because that's the year that Joe McCarthy joined the team as the player manager. Joe McCarthy.
Is that the McCarthy?
No.
Oh, okay. Just
this
checking.
is not the Wisconsin senator from who got in a whole lot of trouble
McCarthyism.
back in the 50s.
Right.
This was the Joe McCarthy who later went on to become a Hall of Fame manager for the Cubs, Yankees, and Red Sox, and arguably the greatest manager of all time.
How do you know all this stuff?
Well, back in
Back in the day.
Back in 1983, I joined a group called the Society for American Baseball Research, SABR, SABR for short.
Oh, cool.
And people who are SABR members are called sabermetricians.
I love that.
And
you are a sabermetrician.
And sabermetricians love the history and statistics of baseball. There's about 6,000 members nationwide of SABR, and we're on the cutting edge of such things as Moneyball, which you may have heard about or seen the movie. Mm-hmm. Well, Billy Beane, who was the lead person in for the Oakland A's in Moneyball, the general manager, was a big SABR guy, and Theo Epstein, who the general manager of the Chicago Cubs, who's brought the Cubs back from death to the brink of the playoff season this year, is a big SABR guy. All right.
So all you baseball fans who are listening to Crescent Hill Radio, and that can include people who are on their car radios on 100.9 FM, people who are listening to us on your desktops or your laptops or your whatever, tablets at home or in the office, and those who are really smart who have downloaded the app to their cell phones so you can take us wherever you go. If you're listening to Crescent Hill Radio, you will be delighted to know that Harry Rothgerber is with us. He has a whole lot of experience with baseball, as he just told you. He started in with a little research group, and he's ended up being just an incredibly well-known baseball connoisseur and expert. He's been on ESPN and NPR and everything else, and he basically has become the go-to guy for anything baseball. Now, I'm interested in the Louisville hat. We talked about this just a minute ago. It's made of wool, as all the old baseball hats were, And I'm sure it would be something great to wear out in the wintertime. But how often do you actually wear this hat? Because it's a 1916 heirloom.
Right. Well, I wear it for decorative and appearance purposes only.
Aha. Okay. You wouldn't
it's
just wear
hot.
it out.
It's 94 degrees out right now, Tara.
You don't want to wear wool on your head.
But it gives you an appreciation of what the players back then went through with an
gosh.
entirely wool uniform, including a wool hat.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Now, what about the Babe Ruth shirt that looks like it's autographed, but it's probably not?
I'm wearing a shirt that I got from the Babe Ruth Museum, Birthplace and Museum in Baltimore, Maryland.
Very cool.
The book, I wrote a book in 1999 called Young Babe Ruth,
Okay.
which is, as one TV host said, that must be about Babe Ruth when he was young. And
I would imagine that was.
I said, you are very perceptive.
What a genius.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So you're
so
working...
the Babe Ruth, the Birthplace and Museum, is located just a few blocks from the Orioles ballpark at Camden Yards. And if anybody's ever in Baltimore, I highly recommend that you go there. It is
Sure.
a really cool place. You can actually see the bed that Babe Ruth was born in.
Holy smoke. Well, I was going to just say you're working out of the supposition that you're a Babe Ruth fan.
Yes.
Am I correct in that? So are you aware of the Candle video?
Everybody in Sabre is aware of the Candle video, which refers to the video that Kirk Candle, Louisvillian Kirk Candle, discovered that one of his ancestors took at the famous 1932 World Series game where Babe Ruth allegedly, and I do believe it's real, made his called shot.
Tell me about the called shot.
Well, there was a lot of animosity between the Yankees and the Cubs that year, and the bench of the Cubs was really getting on Babe Ruth really, really badly. And when Babe came up to bat, at one point it's alleged that he pointed to center field as if to say, "The next ball I hit's gonna go out there."
Right over your heads, buddies.
And now my friend Roger Snell, who wrote a book called Root for the Cubs, said that would have never happened because Charlie Root, who was the pitcher, had he seen that, would have immediately put one in Babe's ear.
Interesting.
And knocked him down. But the Candle video appears, which was taken from the third base side of the field, appears to lend credence that Ruth pointed.
So
now,
he was showing exactly where he was going to hit the ball. And don't go away. We will be right back with Harry Rothgerber, and he is going to tell us the rest of the story about this incredible Candle video, which is owned by my friend Kirk Candle now. He's gotten it passed down over the last few generations, and we're very excited to hear more about how it actually happened. Did Babe Ruth call that shot, or did he not? Find out right after Jim's smoke.
He is thing, he is thing, he is thing.
We have a whole bunch of events going on. And coming up, just so you know, I wanted to mention this so I don't forget it. There's a really cool event for greyhounds, and it's called Greyhound. It's the Kentucky Greyhound Placement. And it's a new rescue and placement organization. So that's why Harry about baseball, and we've talked about a lot. Let's just chat about Louisville's history with baseball because it's rich and varied, and that hat is a perfect example.
Let me tell you some unique and somewhat humorous things about Louisville baseball, and maybe some firsts.
All right.
Tara, have you ever heard of a major league pitcher pitching with both hands during a game?
Ambidextrous pitching?
Yes.
Woo! I
Yes.
have not.
Actually, Louisville had a player named Icebox Chamberlain who did that in 1888. And of the six pitchers in Major League Baseball who have actually pitched with both hands during a game, he is the only pitcher to have recorded a victory doing that.
So he had no strong hand, weak hand. He just had two strong hands.
He went 7 innings against Kansas City from his normal right-handed, and then pitched the final 2 innings as a southpaw, and ended up winning 18-6.
That is amazing.
However, the first person ever to do that was back in 1882 when Tony Mulaney of the Louisville team did it.
So it seems to be, endemic to Louisville that we have ambidextrous pitchers.
Sure.
Are there any still in existence? I mean, are any of the guys nowadays throwing with both hands in the same game?
About 15 years ago, there was a pitcher who was doing that in the minor leagues, but never made it up to the majors.
Really?
Yes.
Fascinating. Okay,
Yep.
please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well,
Louisville baseball with Harry Rothgerber.
back in I was doing research, and I found a story of the Louisville Colonels. Or not, they weren't the Colonels back then. Actually, they were called the Louisville Eclipse.
Okay.
Back, but I found a story back in from 1865 when the first intercity game was played.
Intercity.
The Louisville team, which called themselves Louisvilles at that time, the Louisvilles, played the Nashville Cumberlands. And the sport was so new that the several hundred people who attended that game didn't. Not only did they not fully understand the game, they didn't know that the game had ended.
The cue is the 7th inning stretch plus 2.
Until the scorer, who was Mrs. Dickens, the wife of the Nashville shortstop, stood up on the scorer's table and announced that the game was over and Louisville had won.
That's hilarious. So the Louisvilles, they didn't say Louisvillians.
A lot of times the teams were called by their, the Cleveland team were called the Clevelands if you look back in the old newspapers.
Interesting.
Back in the 1880s, the Louisville team had a player named Toad Ramsey. His real name was Tom, but Lord only knows why he was called Toad. But but Toad Ramsey was a spitball pitcher.
Now, what is a spitball? Tell me what that means. Are they literally spitting on the ball?
Yes, they're spitting on the ball to change the trajectory of it and make it drop at the last minute.
How could spit do that, Harry?
It's the physics of baseball, Tara.
Wow.
The physics of baseball.
Amazing. Is it legal?
It used to be.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been legal now for going on 90 years. But if you put any foreign substance on the ball, it's going to change the trajectory of it, whether it's Vaseline or spit or whatever.
Now, I've heard of guys who used to have Vaseline like behind their ears.
And
they would put it on the baseball.
Correct.
Wow.
Well,
Those
anyway,
poor batters.
Anyway, Toad Ramsey liked both his baseball and his diet nice and wet. His liquid diet might easily have been described as chronic or habitual.
Really?
Yes. And his manager, who was Honest John Kelly, tried sobering Toad up, but it
didn't work so well.
It appeared that the pitcher, Toad, only had 2 states, drunk and hungover.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
he pitched really well, didn't he?
He pitched lousy when hungover.
But not drunk.
So finally, Honest John, the manager, wisened up, and before each of the Louisville games would take Toad under the grandstand and pour liquor into him until his eyes cleared, and then sent him out to the mound to work his moist wizardry again.
That's incredible. That poor guy. What happened to him after he finished playing baseball? Do we know?
I have no idea.
Did he die like Stephen Foster in the American Hotel, drunk and debilitated?
Well, there were a lot of ball players back then that did that, and are buried in Cave Hill Cemetery.
Wow.
Actually, but I don't know about Toad right now.
That's very interesting. So, were the guys who were coaching and managing like Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own? Were they just these great big bullies who yelled and screamed and said, "There's no crying in baseball"? Or were
Well-
they really nice, genteel guys?
Well,
time?
the 1800s and early 1900s were a rough and ready period of time in America's history, and
Sure.
I think the baseball managers pretty much
Reflected that.
pretty much reflected that.
I was curious as to if they were representative of their times, because in the early 1900s we went through several different periods of, genteel behavior, especially in the South. And I've always been curious about how different it is for sports teams in different parts of the country. And of course now people come from everywhere to play sports in every city and from every country, so it's not really indicative of where they're from. But it used to be that all the players would come from Louisville to play in the Louisvilles, right?
That is true.
And all the Nashvilles and all the Birminghams.
Yes, Tara.
Not like that anymore.
Now, let's go to 1887.
He's like, be quiet and let me speak.
Now, you may think
Go
that,
ahead, Harry Rothgerber, encyclopedic knowledge of baseball guy.
You may think that Dizzy Dean was the first person to strike out 17 batters in a game.
And you're
Now,
going to have to hold that thought for me for just a minute, because I got to play something important. It's where you find music tonight.
Let's take a look at the WCHQ concert view for Wednesday, September 7th.
In your WCHQ concert view. If you've got a show you'd like to let us know about, go to CrescentHillRadio.com and hit the icon at the top of the screen that says Liz.
Heading Bryce and Kev, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. And they are so kind to prepare your wonderful weekend of music, or weekday of music, depending. I mean, a lot of people go out during the weekend, but the connoisseurs are the ones who hit the streets looking for music during the week. Harry Rothgerber is with us, and he is an expert in baseball. And I do mean expert, but he also is a bit of an expert in the law, because he's been a trial attorney and a retired chief deputy prosecutor, and he has become a juvenile law expert and does all kinds of stuff with baseball. So he knows a little bit about everything. I would love to talk to you at some point about, not today probably, we won't have time, but baseball law. The laws that regulate...
There have been quite a few the law aspects of it.
Is that right? Are you going to write another one, do you think?
No, that's way too dull and boring.
Well, yeah, it kind of would be. So please continue with the story that you were telling just before I hung up on you.
I'm going to segue the Toad Ramsey story into this
All right.
also. Because
Toad Ramsey is?
Toad Ramsey is a Louisville pitcher from back in the 1880s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was jogging your memory about Dizzy Dean becoming famous when he struck out 17 batters.
Wow.
But the first person to strike out 17 batters was actually Toad Ramsey. But Toad did it under some unusual circumstances, Tara.
Which were?
The batters back then received 4 strikes.
Instead of 3?
Yes.
Interesting.
Very perceptive. Your math is
I know. I
very
excel
good today.
in it.
So now that was not changed till 1888. So prior to 1888, you got 4 strikes. There's another glitch also.
Okay.
Because to get a walk, a free trip to first base, required 7 balls.
Wow.
Instead of
4 and 7. Incredible.
So, could Dizzy Dean or Roger Clemens have whiffed those 17 batters with 4, needing 4 strikes in their heyday?
Incredible.
I don't know.
I don't know either. That's amazing. Okay, so back to Dizzy.
Well, that's all with
Oh,
Dizzy.
that was it?
Yeah, we're putting him aside.
Who's up next on the baseball historical lineup?
Let's not pass up Dizzy Dean.
Okay.
Let's segue Dizzy and make a Louisville connection with Dizzy.
Okay.
You're far too young to remember this, but Dizzy Dean partnered with one of Louisville's greatest baseball players ever as a great 1-2 broadcasting combination back in the 1960s.
Pee Wee?
And that was Pee Wee Reese.
Yep, cool.
Dizzy Dean and Pee Wee Reese were the broadcasters for the NBC Game of the Week on Saturday afternoons for quite a few years.
Pretty exciting.
Pee Wee retired after the 1957 season and came back to Louisville and opened up a bowling alley.
That's right.
And the first time I met Pee Wee he was sitting on a bar stool in my father's tavern at Shelby and Oak Streets.
Crazy.
My father was the president of his bowling league. And Pee-wee was going around town schmoozing people to get them to come to the Pee-wee Reese Lanes, which was at Eastern Parkway and near the intersection with Shelby Street.
Interesting.
So
when did Dizzy Dean play baseball?
Dizzy was back in the 1930s.
Okay, because I was going to say my mother spoke to me of him, and she lived in New York, and she loved Pee-wee Reese. And when she came to visit me one time, both my parents came to visit, and I was at some sort of celebrity waiters thing. I can't remember what it was, but Pee-wee I think it was cystic fibrosis.
It was.
And Pee-wee was in charge of that, and Denny Crum inherited it later. But I got a wonderful magazine with him on the cover, and he signed it so I could give it to my mother. And then it just so happened that the next time they were in town, we ran into him. And it was as if you'd introduced my mother to Moses. I mean, she was so excited to meet him in the flesh. You know, and I always just thought he was a great guy. I mean, I had no idea the significance that he had on the lives of young people when he played baseball, and Dizzy the same way.
Well, Pee-wee's the reason I became a Dodgers fan back in the 1950s, and why I remain a Dodgers fan today. He was the Kentucky gentleman.
Yeah.
He was number one. He was fabulous.
Well, it's interesting and we're just diverging, into all kinds of things and digressing as well. Ann Tishner says, Harry! That's all she said, with 4 exclamation points. Harry! After the beautiful statue was installed at Slugger Field, the big statue of Pee-wee Reese, I was driving one night home from my evening news job, and it was snowing, and it was so beautiful out there. Now I'm going to cry, so just get through this with me. But I saw that statue, and I had a scarf on, and I thought, you know what he needs? He needs a scarf. And I remember getting out and climbing up on the base of that thing, which you weren't supposed to do, and wrapping that scarf around his neck. And it stayed there for about a week until the snow melted.
Good story.
There's my story.
Good story, Tara.
Thanks, Harry.
I've got a memory that almost makes me cry about Pee-wee every time I think about it. We had the 1997 National SABR, that's Society for American Baseball Research, convention here in Louisville.
Wow. And
the main cornerstone of that convention was a luncheon event in which a panel of Dodgers would be speaking and interacting with each other. The most prominent of which was Pee-wee.
Sure.
Now this was when Pee-wee was going through his rather bad times with his cancer.
Yes.
And we didn't know if Pee-wee would show up. So I was down at the Hyatt, waiting anxiously to see if he would show up, and everybody had assured me that he would, and it was like at the last minute, and sure enough, here he comes up the escalator.
Yep.
He was hurting.
Yeah.
He was really hurting, but he did a fantastic job once he got there and saw many of his teammates from the Dodgers. He just perked up, and he was all alive. Among the people we had there was his first roommate from the Dodgers from 1939, Tot Presnell.
Wow.
Tot was a relief pitcher who, back in 1997, Tot was in his 90s.
Golly.
And, Pee-wee almost cried when he saw Tot.
I bet he did.
And Tot's an interesting story, too, because Tot was, like I said, Tot was about 94, 95 at the time. And Tot lived up in Ohio, and in arranging for his appearance, we said, Tot, if you come down here, we'll pay your mileage, and we'll put you up a couple of nights and give you a per diem and
nice
and the usual stuff. And he said, well, Mr. Rothgerber, I've got a question. He said, can I bring my girlfriend?
Oh, golly. 95 years old.
And
I love it.
we said, I said, sure, Todd, that's not a
Absolutely.
problem. He said, well, there's another problem.
I got to bring my wife, too.
Not quite.
Sorry.
Not quite, but he said, can my girlfriend and I share the same room? We said, yes, Todd, head, go for
The
it.
poor guy asking permission for his girlfriend to share the same hotel room. I love that. So, it's interesting. I remember when Jackie Robinson lived a long, long life. And, when he and Pee Wee met back at the pearly gates, I'm sure there was a great reunion. But I've always been amazed at the beauty of the friendship between the two wives, Mrs. Reese and Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
And I remember the funeral at Southeast Christian, and that Jack
Lavage.
all Navy was blown off the turret of his destroyer, the USS Sproston, in the South Pacific, and my mother did not know, and her family didn't know if he was alive for months because he was so badly injured, and he was in what would be the equivalent of a MASH unit in the South Pacific. So one day my mother is working at you're not going to believe this. She takes him to the kitchen, traded him with all the boys in the neighborhood.
Tara Birkin Associates.
Musical accent. Our Chronicle.